Hey out there, family. Thank you so much for tuning in to the Rewind podcast. I'm Reverend Sheree. Very excited to be here. I serve at Christ Universal Temple as the director of online ministry, and these rewinds are brought to you really as an outreach experience for the ministry. This is going to be a special one. So the rewind, we rebranded season 2, right? So it's not just that we are here to talk about a rewind on Sunday sermon, but we also may do rewinds on different events that happen, different conferences, and other things that are going on in the world. And so today we thought it'd be a good what's going on in the world. And I titled this one, What in the World? Where we're just kind of talk a little bit about how to address the climate of the times from a spiritual perspective, how to cope, how to get through, how to use these tools, because what we teach here is practical Christianity. So we want to talk about how do we use these principles to make our lives better as we stand in the midst of all that's going on. So the Rewind is your weekly source of spiritual empowerment and growth. And I'm really excited to bring on some of the leadership team. We're going to have a conversation. So I'm bringing on Reverend Gaylon McDowell and Gavin Jackson, and we're going to have this conversation. But before I bring them on, I want to ask you to please go ahead and share this. If you're watching live, go ahead and share with your audience. Go and tell people, hey, you guys really want to tune into this, because I don't know about you, but there's a lot going on. And I've been practicing and working my principles in a uniquely intentional way, because it's important not to, I don't want to pull myself out of a gutter. So you might know somebody who's going through something and could benefit from hearing this conversation, getting some good in your ear, cutting off the news and listening to some good perspectives on this. And so I'm going to invite you to go do that. So just go ahead and share from wherever you're watching. And let me bring on my people. Hey.
Hello.
How are you? So listen, y'all don't know logistically, I'm in Los Angeles. The guys are in Chicago. The high in Los Angeles today is 78 degrees. And
I feel like you're bragging a little bit. I feel like that was just right out the gate, a little humble brag.
It's you know what, we have to do that because there's a lot going on in LA that, like, you got to find right now. We're squeezing the good out of this thing. Goodness. But it's so dope. It's so dope to be here with you. So Rev is taking a break this week. He asked me to bring y'all on. He's like, listen, there's stuff going on in the world. Let's get together and help people and generate that conversation. So I'll just open us up with a brief prayer and just bless this conversation. And knowing and trusting right now that the power and presence of God is active in the midst of us, that there's just this one power, and we stand, live, move, and have our being in this one power that is good, that is love, that is joy, and that is power. And in this consciousness, we open up the conversation for dynamic dialogue, for healing dialogue, for transformative conversation. And we just trust that this is so in the name, nature, and consciousness of the Christ. Amen. 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 I see Doc pulling all the people to the yard. Good afternoon. Thank you for those who are watching live. I want to just say it up at the top that, we're going to talk. Any questions that you have, anything you want to contribute to the conversation, please feel free to add that into your comments, and we'll be able to fold those in as time permits. So y'all good? Are y'all feeling
Oh,
good?
yeah.
Absolutely.
It's not 78 degrees here.
But it's warmer today. It's what, 20, something like that, which is better than it was a few days ago.
It's 20 degrees, and it's 20 degrees warmer than it was yesterday. So thank God.
No, listen, so I've been doing the rain dance here in LA, and it looks like it just took some time to kick in, but I see rain in the forecast because we can use it. LA, I don't know if you all heard last night that it's a new fire raging. And it's, the thing about fires, you may hear, that California has fires, but these are specifically kind of like bordering neighborhoods. And this latest one that's in the Santa Clarita, Casitas area, near some friends of mine, the wind was blowing so fast, it went from 20 acres to 200 acres within an hour. And so just, one of the weird things, like I said, it's 78 degrees. If I go outside, it's super sunny and beautiful. And that just, 40 minutes away, there is, stress and anxiety, and, my friends' cars are packed up in case they have to evacuate. So the anxiety is real, right? The pressure, the fear is real. And so I really am excited that we get to talk about these real things going on in the world. And so from your perspective, because you all are, of course, in another state, how are you perceiving the climate here in LA?
Just looking at not just LA, which is a natural, and, there's conspiracies, where there are arsonists and everything with it. Just in general, as you take it all in, I'm looking at people that are having massive car pileups in the South because there's snow in places where there's normally not snow. Louisiana, Alabama, North Florida, places where they don't have snow removal equipment. And so they're dealing with that, uninsulated homes, dealing with, frigid temperatures in places where they're not used to that. Snow in Houston. I have a friend in Houston that had 6 inches of snow. They don't own a shovel. Right. They don't own a snowblower. So, just taking it all in is just hitting me as, this is a time to stay nimble. This is a time to stay on your feet and, stay ready for everything. We deal in the spiritual realm. Spirituality is kind of the base for everything. But it's almost like, let me just be ready for the unexpected. I'm going to expect the unexpected, whether it's weather, politics, whatever, because from my perspective, it feels like the unexpected is happening on an almost daily basis, if you watch the news too long.
Yeah, absolutely. What about you, Rev?
Obviously, the first thing is I just have, massive compassion for people that are dealing with right in their face trauma. I don't want to, belittle it or just give some platitude for it. What I will say is, regardless of what people are dealing with, the version of you that shows up to deal with it does matter.
Yep.
So what we try to do with a ministry like Christ Universal Temple is to equip people with the tools to allow them to be able to tap into a sense of peace and divine order when everything around them is chaotic. Mm-hmm. Like, how can you be the eye of the storm in the midst of the storm happening right now? So my prayer is that, as people are going through these situations, and some have lost all of their physical belongings,
right.
Let's just be real, home, cars, everything, that they have a sense of understanding that God is the source, and that the things that work in their favor, like the universe is in my favor, and the things that are supposed to happen to rectify this, to restore, like the book of Job, lost everything, and I'm gonna get everything back and double. I'm holding the consciousness that the restoration of spirit actually flows in their lives in a way that they can understand it, because it doesn't make a difference if you start saying all these high metaphysical terms and giving people scriptures that they don't understand. Right now, this is a be still and know that I am God moment, if there ever was one. And I just want to make sure that I'm a space, and CUT collectively is a space that can hold that consciousness, that not only just says we're holding the consciousness, but what actions need to be taken from that consciousness, because faith without works is dead.
Yeah. That there's a couple of friends of mine. It's weird. I keep thinking about that. I have friends whose homes have burnt down. And I'm thinking of, so there's one friend of mine, Terica, who's just 2 boys, and really, really just beautiful home, unique kind of layout in Altadena. And her youngest son has a vision impairment and has been really into music. Like he has like low visual, I think maybe like 5% is what he can see. And so, he's all this equipment and things that they have for him, for his daily living, but they put a video out, and the video went viral. Like his Viola Davis shared it. And I think, I don't know if it's today or sometime this week, she's going to be on a J Hud show, because his energy is so upbeat. It's like, yeah, I lost all my things, but, the boys are just overwhelmed by the love that's coming their way. like you talk about, being in the midst of it and looking at the blessings around you. And so they're just definitely mourning the loss of their stuff, but like, wow, look at all of these people who are, just helping us. Like, one day they said, what do you guys want? And we want some macaroni and cheese and burritos. And so I got friends who started cooking up and taking, like, wait a minute, cook this food and brought it to us. So there's the love that's being shared, and they're seeing just this unconditional love pouring out their way. And that goes for like the 3 or 4 of the families I know that are who are receiving good in various degrees, are so blown away that while they stand before the logistics of this whole thing, that the love is truly being felt and experienced. And I'm grateful. I'm grateful for that. It's nice to see people be love in action.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's there. So yeah, and definitely the places where it's snowing, it's funny, but it's not funny. It's funny because they got pictures outside, but it's also like resources in that city are not ready. Like you said, your buddy doesn't own a shovel, and that's like it's funny until you got to go somewhere, because if your buddy doesn't own a shovel, I bet that city doesn't have snow trucks.
Yeah, I was actually thinking about one of my younger brothers. And when you get to his house in Georgia, where his driveway works, you have to drive down and turn into his garage. You can't get out of his garage,
right?
So it's one of those things to where you have to be mindful. I have a cousin in Houston that actually built a snowman. Yep. It was like, oh, okay, well, we're here. We went out there and build it up. So, but he's from Chicago. He moved down there after he left college. So, his brain is recalibrated for it. He's like, oh, I'm just go back to what I already knew.
He's having a good time.
Matter of fact, one of our mutual friends posted something on Facebook or Instagram. He lives in the Atlanta area, and he said it took him an hour and a half to get off of the off-ramp to go to the regular streets to get to his house. An hour and a half on an off-ramp. No, so so we do got to be mindful. One of the things that this does remind us of is, people can claim that climate change isn't real. People can claim that these things we do don't affect the weather and et cetera. But yeah, it really does.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. There's a you look at these little things, like somebody not being able to get out of their driveway, someone taking extra time on their commute, someone's that there's a new fire that has just started. It's these individual things are happening, but I think that it's compound, right? It's like all of these things are happening all at one time that I think breeds a sense of what is going on in the world. And then you add to that, the first few days of a new presidency and the waves of anxiety that have come over some of the choices of these executive orders that have been issued. And so how are you from a political perspective, like just a political climate, what's going on, Gavin? Tell me a little bit about your perspective of what's going on politically.
I mean, politically, it's tough. I'll just be 100%. I've been in meetings, in the legal community. I'm also a restaurateur. I've been in meetings in the restaurant community. And you're like, well, those communities are completely different. And both of them are going through it as far as what is the changes that are unexpected, the changes that are irrational. For instance, I was in a meeting earlier today when a restaurateur was concerned that ICE agents can just randomly come in and take some of his kitchen staff because his kitchen staff may or may not be documented differently. And it's just not something that this individual had prepared for in any way, in choosing this career. People in the legal community talking about just from one executive order, a client who is a post-op transsexual has to be moved from a women's prison to a man's prison immediately. And what that does for that person's client, for that client. And, it's on and on and on. It feels like just a deluge of things to consider that you haven't considered before. You know, the Equal Employment Opportunity Act has been, you know, taken down or is in the process of being taken down. And, you know, it's just something like every day. So it feels like just a waterfall of information that you're trying to deal with and process, you know, just on a fact-based level, not even getting to the spirituality of it, just on a practical, how do I do my job level, depending on what industry you're in. And it's definitely a challenge, like 100% a challenge.
I don't know who said this, Reverend Gaylon, you may know, but it's manage the facts, hold the truth. Manage the facts, hold the truth. And there's a third part to it.
I know it too, and I forgot who said it.
I literally have the Post-it note sitting in my bedroom, but it's manage the fact for sure. Manage the facts, because I think that we can't put our heads in the sand, right? Manage the facts, hold the truth. Like, you got to know the truth. And I think that in the midst of it all, hold the vision. Unique is saying, know the truth, hold the vision. Is it a third one? Let me know. Put it in the chat if you know what that third part is. Yes. So what we want to be mindful of is that we are looking at what's going on, and we're making decisions and choices about what we see.
Yes.
Right. We're making decisions and choices about what we see. Reverend Gaylon, how have you been ingesting the political climate? How have you been?
Well, let me speak personally, and then I can talk about, you know, things that impact. Personally, I'm in a complete peace. Complete peace. I wish I could tell you something otherwise. I've had other things that were on my mind that, just to be frank, my father recently made his transition and eulogized my dad. My brain has not been on what the government has been doing. Mm-hmm. That being said, even if it was, my perspective is the guy that got in is doing what he said he was going to do. I'm not surprised when people tell you, you know, what, you know, what did Maya Angelou say? When a person shows you who they are, or tell you whatever, believe them.
Yes.
Nothing that's being done is not what was not a part of the campaign. So the expectation of, oh my God. So I think we just got to be mindful of, as true students, or if you're just new to a teaching like this, that okay, I have experiences. I'm not my experience. Mm-hmm. We got to be really careful about that, because if not, every time somebody does something, we're in reaction mode versus addressing situations and circumstances based upon, I'm gonna be in my truth while I address it. I was looking at this. This is a book I love, Martin and Malcolm and America, A Dream or a Nightmare by James H. Cone. Everybody, I think, especially if you're a Black person, should have this book. I just believe that. I believe this book is great. But this is interesting. I just want to just read something that Martin Luther King said in a very difficult time. He was in the midst of the civil rights stuff. People are dying in the Vietnam War, economic instability, the country, this is 1960s United States. He wrote, although Martin was often depressed about his government's refusal to stop the war in Vietnam and to eliminate poverty at home in the third world, he did not lose hope. Then he quotes Martin, "I haven't lost hope," he said about 2 weeks before his death. "The days ahead are difficult, but I have not lost hope. This is the only thing that keeps me going. I do not yield to the politics of despair. I will continue to work and hope that through that working, we will be able to transform dark yesterdays into bright tomorrows."
Mm-hmm. Now, and I think some of the politics is to erode that hope that you just read.
Yeah.
Like some of the proclamations are literally just to get a reaction.
Exactly.
You know, when the president says, I'm going to change the name of a body of water. I don't know if you've heard this. He said, I'm going to change the name of the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America. Yeah. That's strictly for reaction. Mm-hmm. That is strictly like a prod to anger somebody. It doesn't really do anything. It doesn't do anything economically. It doesn't do anything politically. If you want to call this ocean, whatever you want to call it, it actually doesn't affect anything except for to prod and upset a certain group of people. And I think sometimes that's the point. So it's like, man, do I fall for this?
Yeah.
Emotionally and mentally, every time somebody tries to upset me,
right?
Or do I try to regain control of my own thinking and feeling?
Right. So we got to take back our minds. We got to take back our minds,
right?
Because this is really an assault on the mind. So if I can get you reacting about everything that I do, it goes back to the miseducation of the Negro. If I could teach a man to go to the back door, he will go without being told. And if there is no back door, his very nature will compel him to create one. So what I'm present to, and regardless of being a right wing, left wing thing, Democrat, Republic, progressive, conservative, as a metaphysical, new thought Christian thinker, my mind is, where's the conditioning happening? How are you trying to condition my thinking? Because if you can condition my thinking and you can get emotional responses out of me and you can shift my belief system, you can change my behavior. A shift in thinking can create a hero, and a shift in thinking can create a coward. It's all thinking. And when we are looking at things and we're not realizing that all of this stuff is just sometimes overstimulation, that we don't realize that we're being conditioned to not respond when it's time to respond, to not respond from a place of self-worth, to respond from a place that understands that you always have your own agency, that nobody takes your power from you. When we understand that, it's different. Let me give an example real fast, if you don't mind. Many years ago, I was meeting with a group of medical doctors and ministers. This is maybe 20 years ago or so. And in the midst of the conversation, these doctors were talking about all of the things that were happening in the Black community in the Chicagoland area. Too high on this, too low on that, all of the stuff that we know the data says. And then these ministers got up and they started asking questions. And I was perplexed. So I said to the doctors that invited me and the ministers that I knew at my table, I said, this conversation is perplexing to me. And they said, why? I said, because this was a Saturday. I said, tomorrow, these same ministers will get up and start talking about that Jesus is about to come back and blow the world up. They're not going to have any concern about the concern of our well-being. Why are you telling people to be concerned about health stuff 25, 30 years ago when every Sunday they're saying last and evil days? Every Sunday, Jesus is about to come and blow the world up. Jesus is about to rapture people up. Now, people might say, well, what does that have to do with what we're talking about now? These same people are in our politics. They are our mayors. They are our councilmen. They are our county presidents. They are our governors. They are our senators. There are a House of Representatives. There are presidents at the state and the federal level. They're in the government. So these people who have been conditioned not to be concerned, and this kicked into me the other day as I'm watching a speaker that I really love, and he was talking about, I'm not concerned about this climate, this or whatever's going on, because I believe in a God that's going to burn it all down and destroy it all and recreate it new. And I said,
right.
So when we see these policies that don't seem to care about the future, they're being created by religious thinking that discounts the future because they don't believe it'll be one. And we just have to be present to that when we're dealing with what we call politics, there's religious ideology behind it.
Yeah, but I think that
present to.
Yeah, I think that in addition to that, there's also just, fear-based thinking, right? And so meaning fear-based at the point of like, I could be what appears to be in a position of power, but that power is built on a fear that if I relent, if I do anything differently, it's going to take something away from me. And there's just fear right now. There's fear that the majority will become the minority, and those things are prompting a lot of policy. But one of the things that Reverend Wells said in his sermon, I think this was like 2 weeks ago, was talking about like where you started with just reclaiming your mind. I'm going to play this clip Let's chat about it, because I think that this is going to be, when we talk about practical Christianity, I think that this message is going to be what we stand on, because so many facts are presenting themselves that you can be in a swirl, you just don't know enough to be able to even articulate an opinion about it. But here's where you can't take your mind.
But I sure better ask me if it's working. See, we say the primary cause of suffering is forgetfulness. So if I forget that I am a child of God based upon what's happening around me, I'm going to need something to bring me back so that I can be grounded and rooted in truth. Got to reclaim my mind. And the sooner I reclaim my mind, the sooner I can stop suffering under the opinions and depressions and vibrations that are inconsistent with what I want to experience. I've got to reclaim my mind. I've got to get back in the driver's seat.
So that get back into the driver's seat, I think, is it rings so loud to me, and meaning just you are in control of your mind again. We're turning on the news and we're saying, hey, okay, tell me how to think and feel today. What's the latest, so that I can know what to think and feel. And I think Rev is helping us to see that it is that when I'm rooted and grounded in the truth, then the way that I even process this information shifts when I'm in that driver's seat. So how do you get yourself back into that space, right? Because I don't know, like I said, I've had to go back and reclaim my mind several times in the last few days, because of things that I would hear that are just so, that I perceive them as so selfish and maniacal, right? How do you take back your mind? How do you reclaim?
Well, for me, I think the easiest way is to truly be aware of what you're mentally consuming. At the beginning of the year, a lot of times people will do fast. I'm gonna do a juice fast. I'm gonna cut back on sugar. I'm gonna whatever. You have to do that also with what you're mentally consuming. In my car, I love the news. My car is programmed to have satellite radio, so I'm listening to NPR is programmed as a quick button, CNN, MSNBC, Bloomberg Financial. Those are what I listen to in the car. As the election came to the end, I literally reprogrammed those buttons, because I'm angry now. Every time I'm getting in the car, I'm listening to this stuff and it is upsetting me. So it's my job to make sure that I don't want to put my head in the sand. I like the news, but maybe I need to cut back on that. Like a person cutting back on sugar. So I reprogrammed the buttons in my car to all sports stations. I'm listening to ESPN, ESPN Plus. I'm listening to anything that doesn't have to do with the election, because I have to make a choice on what I'm consuming first, so that I can, as Reverend Wells said, reclaim my mind. Mm-hmm. If I want to hear the news, I'll listen to it for a few minutes a day if I want to, or maybe I don't listen to it at all this week, because I have to control my thinking. I don't want to lie to myself about what does and what does not upset me.
Yeah.
So that, just simple act. I'm not going to listen to these stations today or this week or whatever. Mm-hmm. And then, then we go from there.
Yeah, that I know the practice of cutting off the news I've gotten very good at, because I've gotten the information I need. Typically, It's just repeating the same things over and over again. Then it's, what do you think about that same thing over and over again? And everybody has a doomsday perspective. And so once I have the information, now I know what to work with. I know what do I believe? Why is that bumping me so much? And to begin to work with myself on it. But I think that just to know that you don't have to watch it, I think is really, that you don't have to listen. You said, I reprogram my buttons. You actually have permission to focus on something else, even if it's for a short span of time, just to give yourself a break. And you got to know where you are, because some people can watch it because they just know where they are. Like you said, it doesn't impact you. Yeah. And then when you realize it was.
But I like be an observer of your thoughts. You know, be like, you know, how have I been feeling for the last 3-4 hours? You know, don't lie to yourself. And then evaluate, well, what is allowing me to feel that way, good, bad, or indifferent? But you have to be 100% honest with yourself. And you have to kind of be an outside observer of your internal thoughts so that you can see like, oh, have you ever had like a food log where you're like, oh, you know, like you can really lose weight if you write down everything you eat in a day. Well, I'm not saying you have to write down everything you think in a day. That's not necessarily practical, but you have to observe, like, you know, what was I thinking about? What was I consuming for the last 3 hours, 6 hours, 12 hours? And then you can adjust from that information.
Yeah, I mean, so Reverend Gaylon, when you think about, because you are at a state of peace, right? Mm-hmm. So people in your environment who are not in a state of peace, how are you? How are you engaging right now? Because we've all had that experience where you are in a good place, and then, you know, people want you to jump into the sinking boat with them, right? They want you to come and like, it's kind of like when something doesn't taste good, you say, "Taste this," right? Like, I want you to taste the nasty too, so we can share in this misery together. How are you managing that?
Well, for me, it's a little bit easier because I've created the space to where people understand when I say, "Hey, I don't want to dwell on that right now." I've developed the relationships where when people try to pull me into the space that they're in, everybody doesn't want to hear your positive response. Let's just be clear about that. You know, if you have family and friends, that does not mean that they're where you think you are. You might not even be where you think you are. So what I try to do simply is this. When people bring stuff to me, I can get real quiet about it, or people expecting a response. And my response is short, because here's the thing. As a minister, I have to fight the need to try to fix people, because we get in a space to where we just feel as though somebody's brought something to me and then we put the cape on and now we got to go to the rescue. Sometimes it's better for me to do the work internally than it is for me to debate somebody's belief system head on. Right. If it's a situation, a circumstance where I know somebody is consistently in a space that I don't want to be in, depending on where I am in consciousness, that tells me if I need to engage and at what level I need to engage. Some people I need to pull away from completely. Some people get stuck where they are. And instead of me making them wrong, I'm saying, what do I need to do to protect my consciousness? Mm-hmm. Because I can't be of an assistance to them. I can't support them. I can't love them. I can't show up for them if I don't take care of me. So I'm in the space of simply one basic concept. Nothing has to change for me to be at peace. Now, that might seem way too radical for some people. That's for Gaylon McDowell. Mm-hmm. Nothing. Now, that doesn't mean that I don't take action to change things that are my responsibility to change. What I'm saying is nothing has to be different for me to be at peace. It's just like forgiveness. Nothing has to be different for me to forgive. See, the thing about it is the reason why we get upset is because we have built in these beliefs and triggers, and we think it's the outside person or the outer circumstances that are creating the upset. But, you know, I remember many years ago, probably like the year before my daughter was born, I did like all 365 days of the Course in Miracles on the back. Remember those daily exercises? Mm-hmm. And I'll never forget running across the statement where it says, "I'm never upset for the reason I think." And that's always stuck with me, you know. And then like the next exercise was like, this pen means nothing. I give this pen all the meaning that it has. In and of itself, this pen has no meaning. Now, so I decide what this pen is and what it means to me and what it can do. And for some people, this pen is something to write. Okay. You put this hand in the person that wants to fight is something you can poke or stab with somebody. It's totally dependent on the meaning you give it. So my question is to myself, when I am engaging with the situations in the world, what is the meaning that I am giving it? Because I can deal with it address it from an empowered meaning or from a disempowered meaning.
Mm-hmm.
Because regardless of the meaning, I gave it the meaning. It didn't, this is why Tom Johnson, the great Science of Mind author, said, you are always your own experience.
But I think that that's the leap that we can't assume people have made, which is that you create your experience, right? And so we are, and I'm saying this because I know that I'm speaking to some people out there who study New Thought and consider themselves to be New Thought Christians. And the idea, so to say that I'm going to focus on what's good, I'm going to hold that space of peace. I don't want you to miss something that Reverend Gaylon said, which is that I'm listening for what's mine to do. Right? Like that sometimes in the barrage of comments coming at you, it's like you're dull to what you can do because it feels so big. And so somebody said, fires are raging. I'm going to, I'm going to open up my backyard for people's animals, right? You can drop your animal off here that way because maybe you can't take it to a hotel or whatever. And so what can I do? Well, I know I can take in 10 dogs. But if you're overwhelmed by everything, you won't hear what's yours to do. And it may be, I'm going to let me do a little research to see if what's being said is true, because you'll listen to what the guidance that comes. If you are, like you said, in that state of peace, then you can hear. So I don't want to, go ahead.
Yeah, but I do think that we have two responsibilities. One is to practically love anybody wherever they are,
mm-hmm.
with no restrictions on what that means. And this is just my perspective, and I'm only sharing mine. I also believe that we also have the responsibility of sharing the ideal, even if right now that seems lofty. So when I say nothing has to change for me to be at peace, that's a lofty idea. When I say I'm never upset for the reason I think, that's a lofty idea. When I say everything has the meaning that I give it, that's a lofty idea. The question comes into play is this. Sometimes dropping something that is so radical, Gavin was mentioning earlier, some of these, executive orders and other things are meant to give a reaction. Sometimes the truth drop also gets a reaction.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
And we don't, and we don't realize what's actually happening when we say somebody just dropped the truth on me that's so strong, it paused me to have to think differently.
Yeah.
So I do think it's a responsibility for us to be as compassionate as possible and uncompromising with truth as possible at the same time. Is that a delicate balance? Yes. Have I figured out how to do that? Absolutely not. It's a day-to-day process for myself, let alone anybody else.
I think questions help with that sometimes.
Right.
Because a question to me will crack the atmosphere when you ask the right question. And one of the questions, and so you all know that I've been a member at Up Church in LA for 20 to almost 30 years. And so I don't know what came from where, because I know that things came out of Christ Universal Temple and we were taught them. But it is this idea, this question of what's the truth about that? Like, what's the truth about that is a question that will stop you from the storytelling and help you to start to think in a different direction. And so I'm always present to what a question can do, because I have to do those same questions for myself. Wait a minute. So what is mine to do is one of those questions, because that stops the feeling of overwhelmed for me personally. What's mine to do? Because sometimes it is, my eyes are open because there's so much to be done. What is mine to do? Period. Right? No question. That's the question mark. What is mine to do? And let me be open and present to that. This GM in the chat said that I just think to myself, be still and know that I am God. So we're holding on to these statements of truth, like Reverend Gaylon said, about these lofty statements, and beginning to lift ourselves up to the lofty statements, because we make a lot of proclamations that will take our thinking down to a lower level.
Right.
So I think that be still and know that I am God is a reach that we want to be in, that we want to rise up to.
But I never want to lose the, kind of the boots on the ground, like facts of things that will happen. Politicians can actually change people's lives. Politicians have sent people to their death in wars. Politicians have sent people to their death by economic policies or by drug policies, flooding communities with drugs. These decisions have real life applications. One of the executive orders, like you said, we're only a couple days into this, lifted there's a cap on drug prices for people that are on Medicare and Medicaid, a cap on the price of insulin. That is just by executive order been lifted. There will be somebody that cannot afford their insulin because of that decision. And so now me as a spiritual operator, I have to figure out, how to deal with that. It doesn't affect me directly in any way, but it affects someone else. So, what's my responsibility as a spiritual operator to say, all right, I don't want, to fall down the mental pit of being upset because of this. I do want to be a beacon and a light unto all humanity and a light to people that will have to deal with this. What's my role in this? And I'm just asking you a question because I don't fully have the answer.
Yeah.
All I can do right now is day by day, try to make sure that I'm being the fullest expression of God that I can be. So that when the opportunity comes for me to help people, when God wants to use me to help someone, I'm ready to do it. And I haven't gotten myself so upset or so depressed or so anxious that I'm not ready to do the work when the work comes. Because it's real. It's not, these are not just theoretical changes that we're dealing with. People will get hurt. People will die. The last time Trump was in office, they literally had a policy that said we will punish illegal immigrants by taking their children away from them. As a parent, I will admit that really messed me up because I can't imagine the government saying you've committed a crime or whatever. So the punishment for that crime is we're going to take your kids and you will not know where they are. Mentally, I have to make sure that I have my own tools so that doesn't send me down the rabbit hole. But I do think we have a responsibility to get our teachings out because people will need us to save their lives. And I don't mean that hyperbolically. I mean, literally keep them alive.
Yeah. So one of the things that I've benefited from is Reverend Gaylon talked about the people that you have around you. And so people around me typically are sharing information. If you happen to be in Reverend Gaylon's circle, without fail, you will get a book, an article, a video. You will get a something to help. To spend all day reading your suggestions. That could be my only work for the day. Is trying to stay up on your reading list. But this you shared this video yesterday. I wanna play it. I don't know how long it is. I'm gonna play it for a little bit.
Sure, I think I sent it to Gavin too.
Oh yeah.
Okay. Wait a minute. So I don't appreciate that. I feel like
There's only two people I sent it to.
Every day, Reverend Gaylon McDowell is teaching someone somewhere somehow. So just don't feel like you're the only one getting this good.
Listen, it's nothing about that. It's like you got other. Anyway,
he has other students. He has other friends.
So this guy, Allison Russell Music, this is the IG handle, and so is it Allison? I don't know who it is. I'm gonna play it, and then we'll get clear about who it is.
I understand that everything we're about to face, we've already overcome. And the people who overcame weren't shocked and outraged by every move the regime made. Bayard Rustin was not sweating the daily updates of Strom Thurmond. Ida B. Wells was not distraught by the cabinet picks of Benjamin Harris. Leaders and everyday people who were imprisoned and persecuted by the government acted with conviction and poise because they had a positive vision of the future to pursue. When you don't have a positive vision to pursue, you live in survival mode. You fixate on the threat, so you always have something to flee, but nothing to run toward.
So I'm going to stop right there because I think that that's such an important point. That this idea that what are you moving toward? What's your high ideal? And so that you know what the next step should look like because you're moving toward your goal. And I think that some of us are conformed to whatever's going on in the world. Like I call it like being a feather in the wind. Which way is the wind blowing? And that's the way that I'm going, right? And at some point, I realized I'm not a feather. I'm in the wind. Like what is happening here? What direction am I moving into? And so I totally appreciate. You said you got nothing to run toward. So that's a question. Like there's a ton of questions that I think that he poses in this to ask yourself.
I know how to find the good stuff.
This one is hot. This one is hot. All right. Let's say a little bit more of it.
The way out of survival mode is to imagine and pursue a positive future or follow someone who does. Federal agencies are about to be run by a traveling band of sycophantic C-list celebrities and sex offenders. The last pick was outrageous. The next pick is going to be outrageous too. We know this, but the outrage cycle is not going to protect us. It'll only set us up to react, not respond. Reactions keep us living in their imaginations. Reactions
keep us living in their imaginations.
And that's the point. That's the show.
Mm-hmm.
One of the strengths, and I'm using that word without any moral compass around it. One of the strengths of Donald Trump is he is the ultimate showman. He puts on a show and controls the minds and hearts of people from early in business on to now. And I love how the speaker said, like, he's trying to get us to live in his imagination. And the way to steer yourself out of that is to basically like have your own lighthouse. What are you driving toward that can allow you to stay on course and not somehow be consumed by or dwelling in the imagination of whatever insanity is happening and is going to happen. I love that clip. I was very grateful that Reverend McDowell sent that. I ended up sharing it with a bunch of people myself friends of mine that I felt were spiraling mentally and emotionally. I'm like, ground yourself if you can.
And this to me is the perfect thing. When I think sometimes people look back too much, but I like that you're looking back for, wait a minute, this has happened before. How have people persevered through it before? What's the mindset that they had to move through it?
Think of the bandwidth we need.
What happened?
No. Go ahead.
Plan, organize, and find the right people to follow. Reactions stop us from creating a positive vision of the future. Let's accept the reality that this administration will be a dumpster fire at a bomb factory next to a daycare above a levee beside a free health clinic, and start throwing our support behind people, parties, organizations, and movements doing something about it, who are as clear about what they are fighting for as what they are fighting against. They need you to stop scrolling and show up with your time, money, and talent, or at least to carry water and chop wood for the cause. We're going to be okay if we wake up and work. I need you to understand that everything we're about to face, we've already overcome.
We starting over.
Yeah. Good one. So
in our last seminar that I was blessed to teach in with Reverend McDowell, I was trying to bring up the point that when Reverend Coleman founded this church, like, what was it? How tough was it to be a Black woman from the South in Chicago, in the late 1950s, starting your own business? I guarantee it was tougher than whatever is going on right now. Exponentially tougher.
Yes.
There's examples and examples and examples of people that had their lighthouse. They had their own mission. So without regard to what was going on politically, which was way tougher than what we're dealing with now, Madam C.J. Walker 100 years ago, being an entrepreneur, the political climate then is 1,000 times worse than now, and on and on and on. So I like how that particular speaker at least gives you some grounding to stay on your mission.
Right.
Make sure you are receptive to God's assignment for you, and to not be that feather, as you said, Reverend.
Yeah, and I think it's important as we talking about having people around you. Somebody said that to me, a New Thought minister friend found that video. I sent it to the two of you. I might have sent it to my daughter as well. But anyway, my response was, I agree. And then I wrote back, this reminds me of my grandparents telling me about growing up in the Delta in the 1910s in the midst of Jim Crow laws. This reminded me of my mom marching downtown in the early 60s as a teenager, and the police were beating the protesters, and her best friend was a guy. They were high school age. He threw my mother in a dumpster behind a building and ran and took the police the other way. They beat him to the point that he was permanently mentally disabled.
Wow.
So when we start talking about, oh my God, no, we've seen this America before.
Yeah.
All right. And let's stop being fearful. The thing about it is sometimes you just get out of shape and dealing with things like, oh, okay, well, I'm just going to pretend like these things aren't happening and our people who are festering to create a consciousness of separation. If we go back to our primary teaching, we teach oneness, and people are trying to create division.
Yeah.
They're trying to create tribalism, whether that tribalism is race, whether that tribalism is gender, whether that tribalism is homophobia, whether that tribalism is whatever, class, money, education, whatever. People are trying to figure out ways to divide, because while you're arguing and fighting amongst yourself, somebody is prospering.
Yes.
And that's what we got to be mindful of. Mm-hmm. Somebody is prospering. Somebody is taking power while you're distracted. Not real power, because it's pseudo power. And while we're dealing with pain, somebody is living out their vision in their imagination. As Michael Beckwith often says, pain pushes until vision pulls. Mm-hmm. So we can be in a space to where pain is pushing us regardless of, and I don't want to be, let me just be clear, I don't want to be under the assumption that everybody that follows Christ Universal Temple ministry has a particular political viewpoint, because some people might be happy about what's happening. Mm-hmm. And that's fine too. What I'm saying is, be in your power, be in your own inner peace, and then from that space, take constructive action. Yeah. Because you can't take action from a standpoint of being a victim.
Right.
Victims by universal law, a victim must have a victimizer to complete the law, universal law, because there is no such thing as a victim without a victimizer. The moment you have a victim consciousness, by divine law, you have to attract people to victimize you.
Yeah, there's a scripture I wanted to just, because this is essentially one of my favorite scripture, but also just what we need to really
on my wall behind you.
It's literally on his wall in my office. You cannot walk into his office and not read.
Is it church? Here's the thing. Yeah, my favorite scripture. You got other friends you're sending things to. You know what I mean? Like, this is a truth moment here. A disturbing truth. Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind. And I love that in the second part of that, so that you can discern what is the will of God, what is good, acceptable, and perfect. And so this is going to be an adage I think we all have to work with. Do not conform to the pattern of this world. That the pattern is saying that this, like I said, doomsday predictions, right? The pattern is that I can't thrive in this climate. The pattern is, even if the pattern is I got to fight against injustice. No, you don't. You don't have to fight against injustice. You have to stand for peace. You have to stand for truth. And that's a different emphasis, right? That's a different, now I'm going according to my plan, as opposed to the living in the imagination of other people and doing and playing out the roles that they have set for me. You can take back control of your mind. There is, Barbara said, I must train myself to remember who I am as often as necessary. It's not easy, but it's possible. And she said, I love Reverend Coleman. It works if you work it. Yes, Barbara. I wholeheartedly agree. It may not be easy all the time, but some of this is repetition is the first level of learning, right? And so some of us are just the repeated negative information is just coming at you more than the truth. And so thank you for plugging into this conversation, because our intent is to share the truth. Thank you for plugging into the ministry, to New Thought Ministries, to your ministry, wherever you are, to get a dose of truth. Like, you got to have this good influence. So I did share that video in the chat for those who were asking, because you may need to replay that video for yourself so that you can remember that, that again, this is that what the events that are happening right now aren't predicting my life outcomes.
And one of the things that I was having a discussion with my sister about Trump, and I, you know, as a church, we're not political, but me as a person, I'll just say right out, I think he's a fool and an idiot and a really terrible person. But I was telling her, I was like, you know what, I'm a little inspired as an entrepreneur, because I think one of the things that he has shown is like truly believing in yourself, truly having a mentality of I deserve it all, does manifest without regard to morality. Mm-hmm. You know, he's a liar, but I bet if you put him on a lie detector and a polygraph and said, do you deserve to have 25 billion? He said, yes, that needle would not move. Like, he's from birth has programmed his mind to say, I'm supposed to have everything. I don't care if I deserve it. I don't care if I've earned it. I'm supposed to have it. And by law, it's outpouring. It's manifesting itself. Mm-hmm. So for individuals like us, if someone of that low quality can manifest billions of dollars in the presidency, each of us as individuals can manifest whatever we want in our lives by programming our minds to say, I deserve it. It's already mine, because I really do think that's how he has thought since he was 6, 7 years old. Mm-hmm. You're supposed to have this. It belongs to you already.
You know, it's funny, Gavin. I'm glad you're the one that said it first, because now I can just go there.
No, I'm not asking for 25 billion right now. I'm asking for money, not that much. I deserve it. And let me program my mind the same way he has. Now
the thing about it is, for those who don't know, he actually was raised in Norman Vincent Peale's church, the author who wrote The Power of Positive Thinking. See, who publicly stated he took everything from New Thought, specifically Science of Mind brand, Ernest Holmes. Now, when it comes to having a belief, we talked about earlier about the guy saying living in somebody's imagination or imaginings. Neville Goddard was famous for a statement, which was, imagining creates reality. And imagining creates reality had nothing to do with what was already demonstrated or what people believe was possible or not possible. Is what can you hold in your consciousness?
Right.
And how do you see yourself in your consciousness? What we call delusional was somebody else's breakthrough. And when you start working with spiritual principles, it's very difficult for people to understand that metaphysics often were not taught to the general public because they didn't want people to get this teaching without the love and compassion part.
Right.
All right. Because they knew, like, okay, if we teach people how to really concentrate and focus and create a self-image that creates and produces and attracts experiences that correspond with that which is held in consciousness, you can create some powerful, loving people or some very powerful and dangerous people, because most people are not dealing with the mind at that level to where a person can understand what it really means to manifest what it is that you say that you desire. Like, I'm going to be talking about this on Sunday, so I'm not going to give away my punchline because I'm preaching about prayer, meditation, and sitting in the silence on Sunday. But I have some things I want to say about this, and this has nothing to do with one individual. It has everything to do with understanding principle. As Johnny Coleman used to say, the people used to remember Gavin, and I know you weren't there, Reverend Sheree, but Gavin, I know you know this. When she would say that the law don't care if you work or don't work, the law don't care if you are a businessman or the whatever. Right. And she was saying that to say, not justifying other people's bad behavior, because she said those things have to also draw the criminal stuff, the things that go along with it as well. But she was trying to help people understand that some people in the streets have a better prosperity consciousness than you. And she was saying directly to church people, that dude on the corner you think is whatever, he has a better prosperity consciousness than you. The problem is he's drawing everything else that goes along with it, because his actions to to get the prosperity are inconsistent with harmony, love, and divine order.
That
but
part.
his belief that I'm supposed to have it works through his method of understanding how to get it. Now, what can we do? What can we do?
But I think that this can be the ultimate distraction, right? That you can let the political climate, again, I strongly believe what is yours to do? What is mine to do in this? How am I to bring harmony into the universe? What song do I need to sing? What actions do I need to take? But I think that there is also the idea that things are raging around you. And so you can be so caught up in the reporting about the rage that you forget that you're on assignment. Right? You're on assignment. There's something for you to do uniquely that only you can do. And so you say, what now? And I say it essentially get into that, check out that sermon, understand how to connect with the power and presence of God through prayer, meditation, and sitting in the silence to catch your divine assignment. What is it mine to do right now? And begin to get about it no matter what is going on in the world. Begin to get about it. Don't let your mind be conformed around the pattern of the world, because you're not made according to that pattern. You don't have to think according to that pattern. You get to choose something differently. So there's a, I think that I know that I'm on divine assignment. I know that you two are doing good work. And I want to talk about that before we close out, because we have come to the bottom of our exciting hour. So I wanted to just give a second, because you guys have to plug into what's good. You got to plug into what's pure. You got to plug into the truth, because we're in control of our mind, but there are so many algorithms feeding us different bits of information that you got to reclaim it and be intentional. So, Reverend Gaylon, tell me, what are you sharing? What are you putting out into the universe that is positive and about your divine assignment?
What do you mean? What am I using to support my consciousness? Is that what you're saying?
No, what are you doing? What work are you doing?
Okay. I actually working on, I wrote a book a while ago. I'm doing an editing job of that right now to get that complete. Working on another project that I'll be doing as well to get that out. Obviously, I have my class that starts next week in the Johnny Coleman Institute. It's an in-person called Get Your Money Right. It's the metaphysics and the practical aspect of dealing and building a prosperity consciousness with the education that goes along with it, the facts, quote unquote. Obviously, my podcast.
Wait. When and where can they go to that class?
It's at Christ Universal Temple. Starting next week is 8 weeks, 6:30 to 8 every Wednesday. In the building, come to Christ Universal Temple, 11901 South Ashland. You can register for the class on our website, cutemple.org, by going to the classes tab on the website, or coming into the building and actually signing up for the class. I'm teaching The Path to Wealth by Mae McCarthy, which is a metaphysical system to create a prosperity consciousness. And I will teach you to get rich. I forgot the name of the author, but he's popular. And between those two books, I'm going to be dealing with both ends, the very spiritual and the very practical, and combining them and seeing what we can do with that. Obviously, my podcast is Truth Transformed with Reverend Gaylon McDowell, which has been in existence since March of 2012. I have about almost 500 episodes talking about everything you can imagine in New Thought Christianity, Bible, metaphysics, prayer, meditation, universal law, everything you can think of is there. Some other things that I have coming down the pike, actually probably next week. I'm preaching Sunday at Christ Universal Temple. I'm preaching at the conference, I'm presenting at the conference for Upchurch, that church leadership development conference on Saturday. I don't know if you can put the link in there if you want. It's a New Thought Church Growth Conference. So I'm one of the presenters on Saturday. I'm trying to think of, I said I'm writing a daily inspiration coming up for Better Living within the next month. And I got some other stuff coming down the pike that, I'm not going to mention yet. But I've decided that 2025 is going to be a very busy year for me, because some things that have not been executed, because I've allowed the busyness in other areas to consume that. And I got to get the stuff up and out of me in a real practical way, because I really believe that, not only have I invested time and energy, but others have invested in me. You know, the people that came before me in Christ Universal Temple and Universal Foundation for Better Living, not to mention obviously my own family, but spiritually in the religious world, it's our job to pass it on and pay it forward. Yeah. So if we're not paying it forward, then we're doing an injustice to somebody who was a master at their own craft that said, you are worthy of my investment. Mm-hmm. And I think that that's really important, because masters don't teach everybody. You might be in a general class, but for somebody to say, I'm gonna allow you to be in my personal space, I'm gonna allow you to have my personal access. You can sit next to me, my office, my home, on the phone with me, whatever, and I'm gonna teach you personally. I'm gonna mentor you and seed into you personally, like we have. The three of us were all impacted by people who gave us personal attention. Yeah. I'm realizing at this stage of my life that has to happen. And obviously I'm now looking for those, like, okay, outside of the general students, like, who do I really need to be passing this on to?
That's a powerful question.
Yeah, like, you know, like I have to be mindful, because nobody saw me coming. Mm-hmm. So I might not see who my people are.
Yeah.
You'll see. You know, but I know that they have to come. I have to be aware, just like a Reverend Coleman and Reverend Carey, or Reverend Evelyn Boyd, and, you know, so many other people, Reverend Wilmetta Harrell, you know, they stopped and they took time. Reverend Mary Tumpkin, they stopped and took time. And so many others. I don't want to keep naming names and miss people, but they actually stopped and made sure that I got it.
So one of the advantages to that is that they could find you, they could see you, because you were walking through the church, right? Walking through.
You got to be present.
Yeah,
they didn't have
so
to
how do people find you? Like, if I'm looking, if you're resonating and it's like, hey, I want to learn from you, how can they find you? Like, what would be the best way? Is it on IG? Is it through Facebook?
Obviously, you know, IG, my Facebook page is Truth Transforms with Reverend Gaylon McDowell. You know, it's an easy way to find me. Obviously, I teach classes. I'm going to start teaching again, personal physical classes beginning next week at the church, because I believe in a certain level of physical intimacy in teaching people. And obviously my podcast, you know, I've been doing it since 2012. So the information is out there.
Right. So your IG is Gaylon McDowell at Gaylon McDowell.
It's easy. You'll see a picture of me right there. You open it up, you'll see pictures of me and posts and pictures of my wife and I and stuff, you know. Yeah.
Very, very, very cool. Very cool. So we have, like I said, being about that work. You can hear he's about that work. Gavin, what do you have going
on? I want everybody to go out and buy the book, Mind and Grind. This is a work that I did 4 years ago. And actually, specifically, I want you to buy the book, which is only $12, which you can find on Amazon right now. Just type in Gavin R. Jackson. You will go right to it. Get Mind and Grind. It's only $12, so you can't buy only one. I need you to buy 3 of these books and give 2 away. Like Reverend McDowell said, we can't keep this to ourselves. Not now. It's also available in person at the Christ Universal Temple bookstore. Again, Mind and Grind, Thinker's Guide to Practical Spirituality, right here on 119th and Ashland. It's in the bookstore. $12. Get 3 of them. Then I want you to go to chapter 7. Chapter 7 in this book right now talks about how the battle is not yours. I talk all this peace, but my default setting is war. Anybody that knows me is like, Gavin is good for a fight. I had the spiritual revelation to realize like how fighting really works. And I want you guys to get it in chapter 7 of this book, Mind and Grind, so that you don't find yourself drawing battles to yourself all the time, so that you can do whatever work it is. If you want to register people to vote, you want to change political processes, you want to get completely out of political processes and live above it, this is the book. You can find me on Facebook at Gavin R. Jackson. You can find me on Instagram at Lord Gavin J. And of course, every Sunday we're at Christ Universal Temple. That is cutemple.org, or find us at CU Temple, Sunday, 10:30 Central Time, where you can hear all of my teachers. I'm a student of Derrick Wells. I'm a student of Reverend McDowell. I'm a student of Reverend Reed. Catch us on Sundays.
Yes, 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 yes. Good stuff. So here's some opportunities to put some good in your ear. I just recently taught a course. It was a free webinar on vision boarding because, man, what better time? One is still, remember, it's just the still top of January. We're just still the top of the year. And the idea of what you want your year to look like. So you're not a leaf blowing in the wind. You are actually guiding and directing your experience through God's vision for you. So I teach this vision board class. It's completely different. Like here's the thing, there was no magazines and no scissors in the class I taught. And so I'm teaching a 4-week version of that course to really get down into this sacred promise, this tangible prayer that a vision board can be for you. And so I'll be teaching that technique, and you'll build your board in those 4 weeks. So just go to shereespeaks.com and you can register for the full course there. It starts Saturdays in February. So it'll be 4 consecutive Saturdays. I would love for you to be there. I will be at the Ministry Development Weekend at Up Church this Sunday. I'll be there Saturday. And we're talking about the changes in church, right? People not showing up visibly to church, virtual, people showing up virtually, watching versus attending. So we're going to talk about that, and as ministries, how to meet people where they are more effectively. And then I'm, of course, here every week, most weeks, just about every week. We're here for the rewind. And I'll be rewinding. You may get a twofer when Reverend Wells is back. I may go back on a couple of his sermons. I did play one clip today, but Reverend McDowell will be in the hot seat next week for the rewind. And so we'll be back here for you next week. Again, please share. There's some resources we've shared here. People need this good in their ear. They need to hear the truth. They need to get a higher vision of themselves. And so there have been opportunities shared here. We pray that you take part in that because we're about helping you and supporting you and living a better life. And thank you all. Thank you, Gavin. Thank you, Reverend Gaylon, for coming today. It's been a stone cold blast.
Absolutely.
I had a blast, and I just want to leave people with one basic thing. Stop being scared. Work towards your vision. And go move your body, because your body believes every word you say and every thought you think. Move your body, go exercise, go for a walk, do something to get the energy out of your body, because sometimes you wonder why stuff is not feeling right. You're thinking it, and you're actually impacting your nervous system, muscular systems, and everything else. You think the stress is just in your head. It's not. The fear is not just in your head. It's in your body.
That's right. Move your body. Listen, when it's 3 degrees outside, maybe don't go for that walk. But unless you have a treadmill.
Put your scarf on or your coat. If you're from Chicago, you can't walk in. We were walking in 3 feet of snow going to school in 3rd grade. I mean, what does that mean?
I will say that I grew up in Cleveland.
It's in my roots. Dr. McKeever's like our official ambassador to all things digital CUT.
Yeah,
that's right.
She has been helping to grow this ministry in immense and amazing ways. Thank you, Dottie.
Thank you, Dr. She's awesome. Shout out to everybody who came in live. I thank you for rolling with us, for sticking in, and we just appreciate you. I know many of you are going to watch this and listen to this later. We're growing the podcast this year. Yes. This year is about exponential growth, and so I'm actually podcasting the episodes, and then you'll be able to share them out on places where you get podcasts, and we're a podcast on YouTube now. So keep spreading the word. Thank you. I just trust that you all will be blessed today, that you will be blessed by something you heard, that something you heard is waking you up out of a slumber, out of a space of inactivity, that you are being incited to do what is yours to do. That you recognize and realize God in a way that you've never recognized before, so much so that you are compelled to be it, to do it, and to have it. And so we stand here in support of that. We're grateful for you. Thank you so much for being here today, and we'll be back next week. God bless you.